for me too.
You're listening to Real Coaching Radio. Building a positive network. Today's podcast is brought to you by Audible.com. Get a free audiobook download at audiblepodcast.com/RCRN. Over 75,000 titles to choose from for your iPod or MP3 player.
Would you like to know how to play the game of life? Did you know there is a game? The game is the energy game. Everything is energy. So what are the tools and the rules for this game? If you don't know the rules and don't have any tools, you'll lose the game. Here are your hosts, Dr. Dean Allen, PhD, and Coach Steve Todd, to take you on a journey of discovery. How to play the game of life.
Welcome to the Consciousness System Show on Real Coaching Radio Network. I'm your co-host, Coach Steve Todd, the founder of Real Coaching Radio Network and the co-host of this show. And I also want to welcome Dr. Dean Allen, the host of the show, of Consciousness Systems Show. Welcome to the show, Doc.
Thank you, Steve. Good to be here.
I missed you.
Yes. It's been a trip since we last talked.
Yeah, it's life. Life goes on.
Life goes on.
Yep, we're very interested and excited to introduce the next chapter in Dr. Allen's book, which is the How to Play the Game of Life. And that chapter is chapter 9, Conscious Solutions. And I can't wait for Conscious Solutions because my unconscious solutions have not been working, Doc.
Well, they don't work. That's basically what they are. They're short-term strategies based on past trauma memory that allow you to survive one moment at a time. But the problem is there's no long-range solution. So that means it's a problem and without any elegant solution. So it just depends on which end of the spectrum you play the game. And, of course, all winners play ahead of the curve, and that's the definition of winning, is being further ahead of the curve than anyone else. So in life, all we have to do is get far enough ahead of the curve that we can create our life rather than being at the effect of not being present, therefore not creating, therefore being the victim.
Right. And we're so good at it, aren't we? Most of us, at least.
Well, yeah, it's hard to know what you don't know, and you don't know it till you know it. And the most basic reality that I've found with humans so far is that they actually exist energetically. And this energy game that everybody is forced to play every day on everything works better if you know how energy works and know what your tools are and what the rules are. And of course, that's basically what this whole series has been about, is a sequence of things. And so now we're finally at chapter 9, which is Conscious Solutions. And of course, this is based on all of the previous 8 chapters and what has led us up to this. But basically, insight number 49, the next one, is masters create peace by alignment with reality. But God help us from those disciples of the masters. And if you don't believe this, just watch the evening news. And this is all of that unconscious, dysfunctional decisions and actions that basically eat up all the energy and go nowhere.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is absolutely right on. Yeah, I mean, I I was on the news, was watching the news last night on Channel 9 here in Denver, and all those newscasters have to inform us of is bad news after bad news after bad news. It's like I did not request that information. I don't need to know all the death and all the accidents that are occurring.
Well, the law of creation is what you focus on is what you create. And that's why it's so important to focus on what you want and to stay focused on it, because when you stay focused on it, why you actually create what you want. But if you stay focused on what you don't have or feel like you can't get, or you automatically go into defense. And of course, there's no points for defense. That's the problem with defense. So it'll allow you to survive the moment, but it's a short-term solution that creates a long-term problem. So getting straight on all of these different realities that exist, whether you're conscious of them or not, and your life will be influenced tremendously by them, especially if you see them this way and they are really that way. In other words, you can't assume something is going to be a way that it isn't. Because as soon as you do that, you create conflict. And conflict manifests as problems and symptoms and all kinds of disease, disorder, dysfunction, and degeneration.
Well, that's really an important one, Doc. Let's repeat that for our listeners, especially the beginning
insight?
of it. Yeah.
Masters create peace by alignment with reality. But we must watch out for the disciples, because, as we know, in my consciousness class, and I'm not sure if I mentioned this before, but I had an exercise where everybody imagined all the masters from all time coming together for a dinner party. And after I got them into the meditation, the question was, what would they be arguing about? And of course, they wouldn't be. None of the masters really. You look at all the masters, and they're basically all saying the same thing. But then you look at their disciples, and then you see where wars come from. And it's basically confusion, misinterpretation of what the masters actually said. And that twisted perversion is what leads to war, crisis, chaos, terrorism, you name it, everything. Because it's an argument about a conflict. And the conflict is not based on a high spiritual view, because if it was, there would be no conflict. Right.
Oh, God. So we automatically know that the stuff that we're all arguing about is all drag.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. And it's one drag counterbalanced by another drag, which makes it a double drag. But that's the only way to that is the only way to achieve homeostasis in the short term with drag, is to counterbalance it with another drag.
Right.
So that's the insidious nature of this particular energy, because not only is it a drag, but it requires another drag in order to survive the moment. And as I do my individual work with all kinds of people, it always comes down to that basic formula. And consciousness is the ability to see how this works and get ahead of it, which is what I call playing ahead of the curve. And as soon as you do that, I mean, I had a client this morning that was telling me she couldn't even recognize her previous life because she was so consumed by fear and outside influence and what everybody wanted of her. And I mean, she was one of the worst that I'd ever seen. And I just finished her second chain with her this morning, and she can't even recognize her life. And her husband's looking at her like, wow, what happened to you? Because he was always trying to stay out of her crap. And now she's gotten rid of it herself, and they're actually connecting and enjoying each other. Because there's all this extra time and space now.
Well, so Doc, why does everybody want to and need to survive the moment when most of us are not even in the moment?
Well, it's fear. Fear is the primary dragon emotion. And fear comes primarily from confusion. And that feeds the dragon, and the one you feed, spirit or dragon, is the one that wins. The one you feed the most. So again, very basic rule. If you want the spirit to be stronger, you have to feed the spirit. If you want the dragon to be stronger, you feed the dragon. Dragon feeds off of fear, confusion, manipulation, force, and deception.
And how can people?
Defense.
Yeah, how can people that have been so much on an automatic pilot catch themselves and stop themselves?
Well, first of all, you have to understand there is a game, and then you have to understand what the game is, and then you have to be able to see it in your own life, which is not that hard to do once you understand it well enough to see it. And then you have to get ahead of it. And it's a process, but it's very simple. It's not necessarily easy, primarily because it's hard to change something that you've done over and over and over thousands and thousands of times. And especially if you believed that that was what you were supposed to be doing. But as soon as you see clearly that it doesn't work, hasn't ever worked, and is not likely to work, then that sometimes becomes more motivating so that the person can actually focus on it enough to do what does work, and then when they do, they see dramatic changes. And that client that I was just telling you about, that's a great example.
Yeah, Doc, in my own experience, I experienced this in a way that, and I relate it to like breaking an egg. Once you know, once you understand, once you break it, you can't put it back together the way it was.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, it's like it's impossible.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, so it really is. It's like a shell around you, and it protects you, but it also contains you and imprisons you.
Right, well put. There's a question in one of the chat rooms, Doc. The question is, are there new masters in our time right now?
I think there's more. I think there are new masters, and I think there's going to be a lot more, because look what a master is. A master is nothing more than somebody who's really connected to reality, which really means connected to themselves so they can perceive reality. And we're heading into the Age of Enlightenment, and according to the Mayans, why we're at the far end of the quickening. And this is what this is all about, is bringing consciousness to everyone who is willing and able.
Wow, awesome. That's really exciting. We're ready for our first commercial break, Doc. Before
Okay.
we do it, let's
All right.
tell our listeners a little bit about your seminar that's coming up in October, the Life Energy
Right.
Game Seminar that's coming to Boulder, Colorado in October 1st through the 3rd. And on the 1st,
Right.
which is a Friday, you're going to do an introduction, and we want to invite everybody
Right.
to come and bring their friends, families, clients, whatever. They are all welcome to spend a
Right.
couple of hours with you explaining what this work is. And
Right.
then you can actually register into this program now. We are running a special right now for early birds until the end of the month, which will be here because things are quickening, as the doc said. Before you know it, it will be
Right.
the end of August, and the early bird special will be over. So if you want to save $75 on the seminar fee, go to www.lifeenergygame.info and register today. All right, we'll be right back after these awesome commercial breaks.
You're listening to Real Coaching Radio. Building a positive network.
Would you like to know how to play the game of life? Did you know there is a game? The game is the energy game. Everything is energy. So
For you, the listeners of Real Coaching Radio Network's live shows and podcasts, Audible is offering a free audiobook download with a free 14-day trial to give you a chance to check out their service. We recommend The Seat of the Soul by Gary Zukav or another audiobook free by trying audible.com. To download your free audiobook today, go to www.audiblepodcast.com/RCRN. Again, that's www.audiblepodcast.com/RCRN for your free audiobook.
Our spiritual development is a journey that needs deep personal commitment to have a lasting impact on our lives. A high level of awareness is the beginning of all areas of success in our life. With our spiritual house in order, our relationships, finances, and health find a powerful balance. For you, your friends, and your family, there is a new online community with goal-setting tools and professional experts to help you create your own spiritual plan and put it into practice. Listen now for details from your radio show host.
Discover how to create your extraordinary life with personal coaching sessions and all the ongoing support you'll need to define your vision, realize success, and create your extraordinary life. Join our online Ask a Coach program and connect with one of our expert coaches in the areas of health, personal finance, relationships, personal growth, environment, career, and spirituality. Go to www.askacoach.us and register.
You're listening to Real Coaching Radio. Building a positive network.
Welcome back. If you're just tuning in, you are watching and listening to the Consciousness Systems Show on Real Coaching Radio Network with your host, Dr. Dean Allen, and also myself, Coach Steve Toth, the founder of Real Coaching Radio Network. And we're going through Dr. Allen's book, How to Play the Game of Life, chapter by chapter, and getting you guys and ladies all familiar with the language of this work, which work is all about accelerating your consciousness. Doc, I'm really committed to that work. And it's kind of interesting because a lot of people I've noticed in this world are very committed to speeding up getting what they want. Like, most everybody wants everything yesterday.
Right.
Like, I want what I want now, and if I don't get it, I'm gonna go nuts.
Right. Well, yeah, that last part is the problem. It's all right to want what you want, but you've got to get it by aligning with and focusing on the laws of energy, which will create it if you know what you're doing. But going nuts is actually going the other direction, and all of your energy goes into going nuts, you know, and then it requires more energy to survive and sustain all the problems that are created by doing that.
And what I mean by going nuts, Doc, I mean by, you know, people are going to leave. They're going to go,
Yeah.
okay, if I don't get what I want, this happens in relationships, and it happens with people joining different
Right.
programs, things. But if they don't get the results they want immediately, usually people's response, I'm just leaving and I'm going to go try something else.
Yeah.
But that's all that they end up doing most of their lives, is trying different things.
Right, and it's what we call going in a circle, you know, round and around and around and around.
Right,
So
exactly.
the only other way out of town, so to speak, is to understand that we are all forced to play that energy game, and in order to do it, we have to understand the rules and the tools of the game, just like any other game. And just like any other game, if you play it the way it works, it works. If you don't, it doesn't.
Makes sense. So moving on to...
That's what we're going to be teaching in the seminar, are all the tools. And it's basically what you've had your whole life, but like any other tool, the fact that you've had it doesn't mean you know how to use it or what it is, or even notice where it applies or doesn't apply, or where you have drag on it, which allows you, which doesn't allow you to be able to use it the way it was designed to be used. And what I found as a therapist, when you go into a person's life, they always line up. The block circuits where you're losing your power will manifest as the identical problems in your life, body, business, and relationships. It happens routinely.
Yeah, it occurs to me, Doc, almost like if we could be just as good as not playing the game well, no, the other way. If we could be just as good playing the game well as good we are not playing it well.
Right, exactly.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, and notice the reason, because remember the objective, no matter what, because otherwise you're not alive, is homeostasis. And that was the last chapter, remember?
Yeah.
And so the two ways of attaining homeostasis are expression and suppression. Now, suppression is easy, and you can do that easily and quickly, but it doesn't go anywhere. The only way to attain homeostasis that goes somewhere is through expression, and as soon as you decide that you're going to follow that strategy of expressing your truth, then in order to really get points, you have to learn how to do it clearly, quickly, and appropriately, with a smile. A certain amount of charisma and humor helps a lot. And now we're getting into the subtle energies of personal power. And that's where it really makes a difference. Because it's in the delivery, the performance, the response in the moment within 1.1 second of the moment or the stimulus. In other words, you've got to show up almost immediately in terms of your truth, and you've got to be able to express it clearly, quickly, and appropriately. And if you do that, you're going to attract others, or other spirits, I call them, who want to live in that space. In other words, they want to live in truth. Now, you're not going to be very popular with those who don't want to live in truth, which will be those controlled by drag or dragons, because that's their nature. That's what they do.
Yeah.
So immediately, if you show up, you've got the best screening method in the world, because the dragons hate the light. So if you show up clearly, quickly, and appropriately, the dragons, those that are controlled of the dragons, are not going to want to play that game. But those who are directed and controlled by their spirit are going to. So you will attract spirits and you will repel dragons. That's what I call a win-win.
Yes, and they actually will have to leave. You either have to let them go yourself, or
Right.
they will leave on their own.
Right. And all you have to do is just show up and express your truth clearly, quickly, and appropriately, and just keep doing it and learn how to do it better.
And how does this work for people that are attached to other people that are actually operating in drag, but they somehow connected to in terms of a relationship?
Well, it's usually what I call a dragon relationship, and it's your drag is counterbalanced by their drag. So you don't want to let go of your drag, and their drag helps you hold on to your drag. So it's what I call a dragon love affair. Now, nevertheless, it's a drag on both people.
Yeah.
And over time, it will degenerate, and that's why we know it's going south, is because it's basically a degenerative strategy.
So the only option someone has there is to stay in it, one, and continue to degenerate and have a miserable life.
Right.
Or what?
Or connect with your truth, your spirit, and learn how to express it more clearly, quickly, and appropriately. And as you do that, don't invest in outcome. And this is where a lot of people get hung up, because they want so-and-so to be a certain way. And you might as well forget that one, because first of all, it's not up to you. Only thing that's up to you is you. And what you've got to know, as long as you connect to your truth, learn how to express it clearly, quickly, and appropriately, that's the best you can do. And then let everything organize around that. And when you do that, you will have what I call real connections. Otherwise, by definition, you will have unreal connections. And they're not going to seem real if they're unreal. And if you don't show up, they're going to be unreal. Because it'll be the not you that shows up if you don't show up. And that's who the relationship will be with. It'll be with your not you, which will, at some point, you'll say, well, you don't even know who I am. And of course, that's true. And the reason is because if you don't show up, nobody's going to know who you are.
Wow, exactly. And that's why I say, Doc, or said in the past a lot, that one person in a relationship has the power to change the relationship.
Oh, yeah.
Doesn't take two. Doesn't take two.
Yeah, exactly. Because if you do it right, the other person either has to grow or go. Because if you don't connect to their dragon and reinforce it, then their dragon can't function. Because every drag needs another drag in order to create homeostasis. And that's when you do the math, it's 1 minus 1 equals 0, which is why it doesn't go anywhere. Because all the energy's gone. Going nowhere.
Oh, man.
Yeah, you'd think it was so simple, everybody would have it figured out, but for some reason that's a problem.
This occurs so simple for me, Doc.
Well, it is. It is.
And I see it so clearly. And I'm not in a relationship right now to test it, but I can't wait to test it.
Yes. Yes. So let's do Insight 50, which is the second one in Chapter 9. And basically, Insight 50 is, if we can't trust, we can't connect. If we can't connect, we can't create. If we can't create, we can't produce or regenerate or rejuvenate our life or body. Make sense?
That's awesome. And who do we have to trust, Doc?
Well, you first have to trust yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to trust yourself that you see what you see, you know what you know, you feel what you feel. And sometimes that's a very difficult one, because a lot of people have a lot of programming that is directly opposed to that. In other words, you don't know anything. You know, what you're feeling is not right. You're way off. I mean, if you get a whole childhood with that kind of programming, you're going to have a hard time trusting yourself, because you've been programmed that you can't trust yourself because you're not seeing things right. And many times, that is the problem, is that you're seeing things very right. They are the way that you look at them. But of course, if you're being challenged by someone else's dragons, they're not going to want you to see the truth. So they're going to have to try and convince you that it's a way that it isn't. And then if you buy it, you own it. And once you own it, then you got to, provide for storage.
Baggage.
Yeah. And from the dragon's point of view, if you buy it, why, not only do you own it, but there's a market for it. And if there's a market for what you're buying, why, it's time to set up a distribution center and multi-level plan and call in the relatives. Because it's heading in that direction. So someone described it as a virus, and I suppose it is kind of like a virus, because basically a virus spins energy backwards, and so it's that nature. And it spreads. The more you feed it, the bigger it gets. So the really elegant solution, or conscious solution, as the chapter is called, is to be conscious enough to get ahead of it. And with this client that I was telling you about earlier this morning that I had, why she's at the point now where she can see this energy and feel this energy and is very conscious of it in the moment. And she's learned to talk to it in the moment, instantly, as soon as it comes up, and she's clear enough and has enough practice at this point that she can go the other direction and stay there. And when she does, her life is, she couldn't even imagine it. It's blissful. But the other way, it's agonizing. So does that cover Insight 2 clear enough then?
Yes,
want me to read it again?
No, it's very clear. We're going to go to a quick commercial break, Doc.
Okay.
We'll be right back.
You're listening to Real Coaching Radio. Building a positive network.
Today's podcast is brought to you by Audible.com. Get a free audiobook download at audiblepodcast.com/RCRN. Over 75,000 titles to choose from for your iPod or MP3 player. For you, the listeners of Real Coaching Radio Network's live shows and podcasts, Audible is offering a free audiobook download with a free 14-day trial to give you a chance to check out their service. We recommend The Seat of the Soul by Gary Zukav or another audiobook free by trying audible.com. To download your free audiobook today, go to www.audiblepodcast.com/RCRN. Again, that's www.audiblepodcast.com/RCRN for your free audiobook.
Our spiritual development is a journey that needs deep personal commitment to have a lasting impact on our lives. A high level of awareness is the beginning of all areas of success in our life. With our spiritual house in order, our relationships, finances, and health find a powerful balance. For you, your friends, and your family, there is a new online community with goal-setting tools and professional experts to help you create your own spiritual plan and put it into practice. Listen now for details from your radio show host.
You're listening to Real Coaching Radio. Building a positive network.
Welcome back. If you are just tuning in, you are watching and listening to the Consciousness Systems Show with your host, Dr. Dean Allen, and your co-host, myself, Coach Steve Toth, the founder of Real Coaching Radio Network. And we are going through Chapter 9, Conscious Solutions, in Dr. Allen's book, which is the How to Play the Game of Life. And before we continue, Doc, real quick, let me acknowledge all of our listeners in Stickham as well as Block TV, Real Coaching Radio Network, MyX for Living, some of our European channel, Kai TV, Receive Internet Radio, and Radio Roku. Welcome to you all. And just a reminder that we are an interactive network. You can apply what Dr. Allen teaches here, which is to be or not to be. And the to be version of you would be to pick up the phone and call our VIP hotline at 303-872-0503 to get patched into the show and ask Dr. Allen some questions. And you can also, of course, reach us at Skype at Real Coaching Radio, one word, or at Twitter, and you can send us a tweet or a comment at RCRN. All right, I think we're ready for the next insight, Doc.
All right. Number 3, Insight 51. Humans feel 6 levels of pressure, and the more conscious we are of these subtle levels, the more able we are to succeed in life. And these 6 levels of pressure basically are being conscious of more and more subtle energy. And there's actually 6 words or 7 words in the English language that have to do with different levels of pressure. And the first 6 words are an ascending problem, and the 7th word is the elegant solution. So I'm want to go through these words with you so that you can see this sequence. And the first word, and by the way, all of these words are from the root word for pressure. And so the first word is impression. And that's a very subtle level of energy, and when we operate and are able to be conscious of this subtle level of energy, we can make our decisions on the impression level, and if we're really tuned in, that's a good place to do it, because that automatically puts you ahead of the curve. And the people who do this in Wall Street, they call rich. because what's happening is they're picking up on things before others pick them up. They're able to play ahead of the curve. And, of course, as I said earlier, that's where all winners win. Now, if you're not quite that conscious and are not picking up things on that level, what the universe does is it compresses the energy so that you can register it on a less subtle level, and that makes the second level, which is compression. Now, that level is still, you can still function pretty well on that, especially relatively speaking, because most people don't operate on the impression level, so you're not really many times competing with people who are operating on that level. But the compression level is functional, let's say, and it works fine, and it's really based on picking up not quite so quickly and clearly and as rapidly, but it's quite functional. Now, the third level, when we go into the third level, we actually reverse philosophy, and at this point, it's based on suppressing the energy. And so the third word is suppression. So we got impression, compression, suppression. And suppression is a philosophy to achieve homeostasis by suppressing. And of course, we know if we suppress one area, we have to suppress another to counterbalance it so that we can achieve homeostasis. So this is a basic shift in philosophy, and if we follow this philosophy, sometimes it becomes very hard to just keep everything suppressed on our own. So we need some help. We need some good drugs, cigarettes, coffee, alcohol, food, any kind of addiction. To help repress all of this energy, and of course that becomes the fourth word, repression. Now, once we've firmly established this suppressive, repressive strategy, it'll eventually reach that fifth level. And the fifth level is what we call deep pressure, because you keep suppressing things long enough and you get a deep level of pressure, and this is of course the fifth word, which is depression. And that's what is very popular out there, and that's what it is called, is depression. Now, if you hang on to this depression long enough, you will go into the final stage, which is what is called oppression, or the sixth word. And oppression is what is called black bloom. And at that point, you have disconnected primarily from what your feelings are trying to tell you, and disconnected to the point where everything is depressing, and you can't really relate any feelings to anything else because it's just one big, dark, negative feeling. Now, the only other word in the English language from the root word for pressure is the seventh word, which is the solution to everything. And that word is expression. So that's why expression is so important. Now, in order to be effective at expression, you have to learn how to do it clearly, quickly, and appropriately, with a smile, a sense of humor, but never deviating from your truth. So that's the tricky part right there. But if you learn to do that well, you will definitely have personal power. So is that clear?
Yeah, it's extremely. Yeah, you just basically take us through. You took us through the spiral, the downward spiral.
Right. Right. Exactly.
And I recognize it because I've been there.
Yeah. Right. Okay. Well, that's usually the easiest way to recognize it. Yes. Yeah. So the more conscious we are of these levels, especially the impression level, because that's that first most subtle level of energy, and that's what allows us to be able to play the game most successfully, is to be able to tune in to our expressions without interference from trauma memory, so that we can really connect to our truth as it's coming in through a pure open circuit. So let's go to the next one then. The next one is Insight 52, which is consciousness ranges from black and white to 16 trillion colors of finer and finer discriminations or views, thoughts, and feelings, which are all energies. So that's a good way to think about what consciousness is. It's that range from black and white to 16 trillion colors. And of course, what is it that makes those 16 trillion colors? It's finer and finer discriminations of energy. And black and white is less and less and less till you only have one, black and white. So does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
That's a good visual because we've seen that in our computers, 16 trillion colors, and that's basically what they can break it down to, and it's all about discriminating energy and finer discriminations.
Now,
so insight number 50.
Yeah, hang on for a second. A question has come up for me about expression. Because you spoke of humans feeling on 6 levels, and this is the 7th level. And because of the business I'm in, which is broadcasting and having people to express themselves through interaction, right, I'm noticing that people experience expression as pressure.
Well, it is pressure if you're into suppression, see? So if you're well groomed into a suppressive strategy and someone says express, isn't that going to create pressure? Right?
Yeah, well, experience tells me absolutely. But in a way, wouldn't expression be like relief, like a relief valve?
It is relief. That doesn't mean they may experience it that way if what they're familiar with is suppression. See, it depends on where you look at it from.
Wow. Because that's what expression is for me, is that if I don't have to hold my feelings inside anymore,
right,
that's wonderful. I can just tell you exactly how I feel and how is that connected to who I am.
Right.
You do with it whatever you wish.
Right. Exactly. And see, that is the formula. Now, you need to learn how to do it clearly, quickly, and appropriately, but that's the only real guideline. And as soon as you do that, everything else will work out, for the best. But you have to be able to do that. And if you're extremely familiar with a suppressive strategy, expression is going to seem like a lot of pressure, because from that point of view, it is, but in the long run, that's what's going to regenerate you. And if you keep doing what you're not doing or not expressing, that's going to degenerate you.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah. Doc, we're gonna skip the final commercial break because we're behind.
Okay.
So just keep going to the next insight.
Oh, okay. So Insight 53 is the next one, and that is productive, successful people are more conscious of subtle impressions quicker. So they are able to function ahead of the curve. And so we've kind of talked about different parts of this, but that's basically what it comes down to. If you want to be productive and successful in whatever you do, you have to become more conscious of the subtle aspects about what you're doing and be able to operate on a impression level quicker and express it in a more appropriate manner so that it's effective and productive. So that one's pretty basic. Is that clear?
Yeah, maybe the part that I'd like to have you clarify is the subtle part. How do people notice, like for me, noticing things that are more subtle, I'm experiencing things that I need to be more and more in the present, and I need to slow down sometimes,
right,
and get connected to really what the clarity of it. Like,
well, the irony that I found is that all of us are already programmed to tune in to very subtle energy, and we do it automatically, except for drag. And so that's why when you release the drag, the automatic spin-off is that you become more conscious on more subtle level, more quickly and more easily and more routinely.
oh, okay, got
That
it.
makes it.
Yeah.
You see how it works?
Yeah.
So it
it's
isn't
like-
about learning to pick up
Okay.
and become more subtle. It's about taking the drag off of your ability to tune in to what is already there except for drag.
Yeah. So automatically, when you take something away, something else takes its place.
Right. When you remove a negative, well, then the positive can be.
Yeah. Okay. Got it. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay.
So the last one, Insight 54, expression is the elegant solution to pressures if it is done clearly, quickly, and appropriately so you can be effective and productive. In other words, we have to, it's a two-step process. It's input and output. Input is perceiving subtle energy differences and being conscious enough to respond to them. So that's input and output. And if you can do that within that 1.1 second of the stimulus, you know, that's what they give the Academy Award for. That's what they give the, all prizes for, the gold medals, everything, is your ability to align and respond to that clearly, quickly, and appropriately. So it's a thing of beauty to watch.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah. It's called being in the groove.
Yeah, because I'm hooked on those things, and I know where
Yeah.
to get them.
Right? Yeah. Yeah. Well, they're certainly desirable once people know what they are. Because when you do that, you feel connected to yourself. When you feel connected to yourself, you regenerate and rejuvenate. Because the energy's flowing, and you're out of fear. which is resistance, which then leads to degeneration, dysfunction, disorder, disease, death, and dying. And it's because all of those words begin with D, or the dragon words. It's all about drag. So these are the conscious solutions, which basically come down to things that we can do consciously that really provide and create what we really want. But notice what it comes down to is understanding how the game works and playing it the way that it works.
Yeah, I'm noticing that if you don't know, first of all, if you don't know if there's a game, and if you don't know, once you know that there's a game, and then you notice and see that there are rules and there are tools, then you begin to appreciate how you can now change the game and change the outcome, which before people are just a victim to the dragon and the circumstances.
Exactly. Right. And then once you see it on a conceptual level, and then you can get your own individual measurement, for those of you who come to the conference in Boulder, then you begin to see it on a very personal level in terms of specific history and trauma and how that affects specific decisions that you're making in the moment. Because that's where it all comes down to. Remember, most everything happens within that 1.1 second, whether you do anything or not. Because if you do something, that's one thing. But if you don't do something, that's another thing. Because either way, you're setting direction. You see how that works?
Yeah, so to sum it up, really, because we're getting to the end of the show, and we got some new people in Block TV. Eric Land just joined us, and Music Machine joined us. That's interesting that we attracted him into the room when we were talking about this, because it's very appropriate. But there are only two kind of games in town, right? There's the game of to be and the game of not to be.
Right. Exactly.
And everybody,
Spirit and Dragon.
and everybody chooses one of these games every moment of their lives.
Exactly.
Now, a lot of us are not even conscious that there is a game going on.
Right.
They're just existing, basically existing and recreating their lives from their past. From their past trauma,
and the dragon energy loves this scenario, because if you don't even know there's a game, guess who's running the game many times?
the dragon is running the show.
Exactly.
Yes, I remember those times.
Yeah.
and those times were kind of funky, Doc. Because
they can be a lot. They're good for short-term solutions many times, and you can really get into that and turn up the intensity, and you can groove there for a while.
Yeah, I didn't realize that I wasn't happy. Like I didn't even know to ask the question, was I happy or not? I was just in my natural existence doing what I thought I was supposed to do.
Yeah.
Unwittingly, I was responding to my programming, which is, hey, young man, you gotta go look for a beautiful woman, you gotta get married, you gotta get a few kids, you gotta get a house, you gotta get a great job, you gotta get some cars, this, that, the other thing, and this takes a while, Doc.
Yeah. Well, it's the you gotta do instead of you gotta be.
Yeah. yeah, I ended up